Okay, well, Ashley told me one of the top questions that we get is what air filtration unit does Dr. Pompa use in his home? And I can tell you that I have switched for years. I've paid a lot of money for an amazing unit, but here's the good news on this show. We're going to talk about why I switched and what technology I switched to that our military actually uses in chemical warfare. And yes, it can filter out a biotoxin from mold, which is really the first unit to do so. But here's the best news of all. It's way cheaper. So anyways, hear about this. And if you don't know that the number one place where you're becoming toxic is our homes, according to every source tells us this, yeah, you better filter the air in your home. Stay tuned for this episode of Cell TV.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we welcome Kyle Knappenberger, Director of Enviroklenz and a leading authority on the dangers of environmental toxins. This is a familiar topic that we always seem to have endless questions about, so we decided to bring Kyle on the show to sort out examples of environmental toxins, the lasting effects of those toxins, and he'll offer solutions for mitigating these pollutants all around us. You will also learn which air purifier Dr. Pompa uses and trusts in his own home. So let's get started and welcome Kyle Knappenberger and, of course, Dr. Pompa.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, glad to do this show with you, Kyle. It seems like it's been a long time coming. Ashley, before you get off, you said that one of the number one questions you get is what air filtration system does Dr. Pompa use? Right?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, you know what? We switched. We had two different units, and I literally switched the unit that we're going to discuss today, the Enviroklenz, because of the technology. And I put it through the test, and I can talk to you a little bit about that. And we had Warren put it through the test, and well, it came out better. And here's the exciting part: actually cheaper than the one that I was using in the past. So this is an amazing unit, and Kyle will bring that science. But Kyle, let's start here. As far as look, one of the things that I tell people, most of our viewers are people looking for answers for different health conditions. And I'm a big teacher about the fact that if there's something upstream, dumping toxins into the river, I don't care what vitamins you take, I don't care what nutrition you do, what tests you run, how, whatever, your dietary changes, well, some of it might help a little bit, but if someone's still dumping toxins up the river, you're going to be killing fish downstream. So that's an analogy of people not being able to fix their gut. That's an analogy of people just simply not getting well. And oftentimes, Kyle, we find that it's a toxin in the home, whether it's mold, whether it's high levels of formaldehyde, what we call VOCs, volatile organic compounds coming from building materials, things that we bring into our home, flame retardants on computers, furniture, drapes, mattresses, all of these things. And then we have what we use in our laundry and our dishwasher. So all of these things add to a level of toxicity that the Environmental Protection Agency says is 7 times higher in our homes, meaning the amount of pollution, than the worst day in LA. So, I mean, I don't know how close that is, but Kyle, let's start here. This is obviously, I think some of your background even went into water filtration and air filtration. Yeah. So you can tell your story. I mean, how the heck did you get into this, and we can go from there.
Well, I've actually been involved in this now for a number of years, just kind of by both passion and luck. I was doing research in when I was in school. My background is actually microbiology, which is you mentioned the water purification, and I got involved in a project that was looking at different techniques and technologies for water for purification when I was in school. And what I didn't quite know at that time was that the technology was university related, government funded technology that was being looked at for some pretty heavy duty things like chemical warfare agent mitigation through a university incubator company. when I graduated, ended up going to that company and working and on a project for mitigation of extremely dangerous toxic chemicals. They wanted to look at different biological aspects. Could these things be used for biological warfare agents in addition to chemical warfare agents? And this technology, and I'm kind of talking more science here, but it was earth mineral metal oxide technology. So it's safe materials that were being looked at and evaluated for breaking down some pretty harmful toxic chemicals, some of the most harmful ones. In your kind of opening there, you mentioned things like pesticides, I believe, and VOCs and different compounds. And chemical warfare agents are just really bad pesticides, really, when it comes down to it. The National Institute of Health really just defines a pesticide as something that is designed to kill or inhibit or somehow disrupt something that's living, whether it's an animal, a pest, a mold, fungus, noxious weeds, you name it. They're meant to disrupt the function of that normal person, and that's what chemical warfare agents are. And getting a little sidetracked here, of course, but these are kind of the worst of the worst types of chemicals. They're affecting the nervous system.
Yeah, you mean the ones that were like literally developing to kill humans?
Yes,
are the worst of the worst. It takes the ones we're using to kill plants or weeds to the whole next level of, okay, I mean, those do kill humans slowly, but these kill humans immediately. So you were doing research on these metal oxides.
Yeah, I was. And this technology and these products, and there's a long commercialization story about iterations of the technology through different products for first responder, police, fire, helping them detoxify or essentially decontaminate or contain or neutralize harmful chemicals that they may be encountering, and then continuing to bring this technology closer and closer to daily applications for the average person that may want to reduce their personal exposure in their personal environment space to harmful chemicals that may be coming into their environment, or that may be in their environment because their environment inherently contains different building materials or compounds that potentially could be problematic for them, and they're just wanting to reduce their exposure to it. You mentioned the EPA's 5 to 10, 7 times higher indoor air quality issues, and the reason, of course, for that is we're not getting good ventilation, we're not having fresh air exchange. I'm sitting in an office here that's 15 by 10 or something like that. There's pressed wood materials in here, sealants, adhesives, all sorts of different things. And depending upon where you live, even things like tighter energy regulations on homes are actually problematic for people because that's reducing the exchange.
Absolutely. One of the studies, the older the home, the less VOCs. Now we could talk differently, mold, but because there was air exchange, your heating bill's higher, but the fact is that there's a lot more air exchange. And so we're building homes much tighter. But the fact is we build them tight, and then we have all of these indoor pollutants that are just inherent to a home. Like I said, washing clothes and fabric softeners that have neurotoxins, flame retardants, and of course, formaldehyde from insulation, et cetera, et cetera. And, if a home breathes, it gets rid of it. But when a home is sealed, it doesn't take long for that environmental VOC to build up. Now, most people don't smell those things. I walk into most homes. Some of them have no smell, by the way, but I walk in and I smell high levels of VOC, especially in newer homes, obviously. So,
we're sealing them up with sealants and you're not letting that fresh air in. So the adhesives, the pressed woods, the aerosol components that you have, the paints, all these things, they're just not exchanging with the environment. So where do they go? Well, they don't go anywhere. You're breathing them, and that's kind of one of the things that when our company is hearing from people that are trying to better their day-to-day lives, they're making decisions on the things they eat or the things that they buy or bring into their home, making different lifestyle choices. But you really, you can't decide what you're breathing, really. You need to breathe, but you don't know what, as you said, what's down the river or what's downwind or upwind from you. It's blowing into your environment, and you can't really seal up your home and not let that in. You need that air. So what do you do about it?
Right.
You can make decisions on what you bring into your home, but these are just some of the things that you can do. And there's other things that you can do as well.
I've obviously gone to the great lengths to only bring healthy things into my home, et cetera. I bring fresh air in. However, I still have a filtration unit that has the ability to truly get rid of toxins. And, we'll talk about the technology and change that I made from, using block carbon, et cetera. HEPA, people have heard of these types of filtration, and why this type of unit is very different. But the bottom line is this, right? If we want to have good health today, our indoor air is the big factor. And now politically, the outdoor air gets all the attention, but again, if the EPA is correct, and, the environmental working group too, they all are saying, wait a minute, the indoor air is actually the bigger problem. And no one's doing really anything to change that. As we're building buildings more tighter for greater efficiency, we're making our lives more toxic. So I'm all for cleaner outdoor air. However, who's talking about indoor air? And yet this is where we spend most of our time. And this is the air that's really affecting our health, and could be one, if not the biggest reason you still don't feel well. I'm teaching people how to do cellular detox, but let me tell you something, very simple concept here, folks. If you have a bathtub upstairs, the water's running, and for some reason, maybe there's hair blocking the drain, and the water's running at a level that is faster than can run out of the drain, it's going to overflow. And then you're going to have all water damage pouring down into your house. Okay, that's the human body example. Our buckets overflow if we have more coming in than less going out. Now, we can help you get less out, but ultimately, if too much is pouring in, that bucket's still overflowing. So, how do we make our internal environments cleaner? I'm a big proponent of adding units into your home that do create air exchange. They're called energy return ventilators. But even then, if you're bringing in outside air, arguably you could still be bringing in some bad things too. So how do we filtrate our home from molds, which is another subject, because HEPA, HEPA filters take out, spores, but they don't take out the toxin. Okay. And the toxin is what really makes people sick. So I see that mistake all the time, Kyle. But then how do we filter out effectively these VOCs, flame retardants, and all the things we're exposed to?
Well, and that's where having products and technologies that can capture chemistry, that reactive chemestry. And that's what, a lot of these things that are problematic for people that, they have issues, whether it's respiratory, skin, we hear about people, I'm sensitive to chemicals that are in my environment. They're bothering basically all different routes of entry into them. And what they want to do, of course, is the correct thing, which is reduce what they're exposing themselves to. And obviously in the indoor environment, you mentioned the ventilation, which is a fantastic way to help with that. But then there's a lot of times that, we get contacted by people that are in situations where they're living in a polluted area and they really don't want ventilation. It kind of is a catch-22.
No, that's right. If you live in a big city, I wouldn't want an ERV. I happen to live in the country, so that's a good idea for me. But yes.
So what we've done is, I mentioned kind of my background in that technology for these earth mineral metal oxides, high surface area materials that are very good at interacting with and binding to different chemistries. And that's what we've essentially done is taken all of this technology and we've deployed it in a way that is friendly for a consumer. And that's through an air purification device.
All right, so let's back up 1 second. You actually started for a specific reason on your background, looking at these military devices to filter these bio weapons, basically, or, I don't know, warfare weapons, right? So that's where your background started. They were using these metal oxides, different minerals from the earth, to do this successfully, correct? So for example, the Gulf War, if they were hit with a chemical exposure, they would have tents, if you will, or places where they had units like this. Am I correct on this?
Well, that would predate some of this.
Okay.
But essentially what we do have is, this technology is deployed for chemical warfare decontamination applications.
Okay.
Immediate response to, a chemical threat or a chemical weapon is really just a hazardous chemical that's being deployed to cause problems.
But this material is designed to basically get rid of that.
Yes, and it's being used by special forces, military groups, hazmat first responders, around the world, specifically for those types of applications. What we've done, though, is continued the evolution of those materials, which are safe. These are safe earth mineral metal oxides. They just have a high surface area, which means they ultimately have a really high capacity and affinity for harmful chemicals. And we've deployed it into different delivery systems for different types of applications. And one of the most important applications, as you very well pointed out, is indoor air quality. We need to be talking about this more because we've got these things, and we've deployed this technology into things that are familiar to consumers, like air filters or air cartridges that go in air purifiers, so that as that air is circulating in their environment, what is it doing? The air is circulating, you're bringing the particulates, you're bringing the different things that are in your air, whether they're particulate matter or chemicals, odors, vapors. Really, odors, vapors, chemicals, it's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, in the world everything is a chemical. The question is it harmful to you? But if we're going to be bringing that in through our air purifier, and you have this technology deployed in that air purifier, then what you can do is effectively remove it and contain it inside that purifier, inside that air cartridge. And you combine this technology with high quality, like HEPA filtration, you can then address multiple aspects of indoor air quality all at one time. And that's an important thing is there's a lot of different air purifiers out there that work in different ways.
Yeah.
But the thing that we really like to kind of focus on is, let's keep it as simple as possible. Let's bring the pollutants to our technology or to our device. Let's have that interaction occur in that device and not out in the environment, and keep it there and retain it there so that we've removed it from our personal environment.
Right. All right. So for the person listening to this, most of them are familiar with HEPA as the standard, right? Now, some of your filter has a HEPA unit added on to this new technology. Okay. Sure. So, but let's do that. Explain the difference of your technology versus HEPA. We'll start there.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the HEPA first, actually, if that's okay. The HEPA filter is, high efficiency particulate removal. It's going to be able to capture
particles, whether it be dust, whether it be
dander, allergens.
Yeah, allergens. Okay, good.
Any particulate matter that is, 0.3 microns and larger, which is frankly a lot of the stuff that, people are concerned about. Exactly like you mentioned, the dust, dander, pollen, allergens, those sorts of things. So, and that is a very effective way to do that. And that's based on size of the, I guess you could say, air quality problem. Those things are all size based. So it comes through the HEPA filter is going
grabs
to
it. Yeah, it's just
grab it and weed it out.
yeah.
But what the HEPA
That's
filter does not do is, and that's where, you know, the other technology, our technology, our patented technology being deployed in a combination system like this, is a lot of the things that you smell are going to go right through, you know, a HEPA filter because it's smaller than 0.3 microns. You know, we're talking about
so
gases,
the
vapor.
biowarfare chemicals, if you sprayed it through a HEPA, you're dying. It's not going to help you.
Well, a biological one, something like anthrax spores, would actually be caught by a HEPA filter. But the chemical warfare agents, the VX and the GD and all those really bad things, they would go right through that.
Yeah.
Because they're chemical gases and vapors. And it's the gases and vapors or the odors, the things that people generally smell are going to be, you know, smaller than the 0.3 microns, and they're going to be, you know, going right through there. So if you have a system that's deploying these two things in combination, in tandem, you now are addressing the two major things that
Yeah. So when you put the HEPA to take out the particular things, and again, the HEPA, for example, mold will take out the mold spore, the particle.
Right.
However, there's a toxic component, the biotoxin component. That's really the one that makes people sick. The spore gives people the allergy. The biotoxin is the clients and the patients my doctors see that really are very sick. That goes right through. Okay, so then there's this other technology, this metallic oxide technology from the earth, natural stuff that gets this other chemical component.
It's getting the chemical component, and it's not going to discriminate against the source of that chemical component.
Which is not,
whether it's biological based mold VOCs or you had a house fire, and had a bunch of corrosive gases released into your home because of burning synthetic compounds or PVC pipe. I mean, there's just a lot of you have a structure fire. There's just horrible
a lot of chemicals. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Chemicals that are, it's obvious why, fire responders have, the highest rate of cancer by profession is because they're exposed to all these things that are released during a fire and a product of combustion. But guess what? Those are things that were in your home to begin with, and potentially were off-gassing at lower levels.
Yeah, that's why I think every home needs this type of filtration, especially in your bedroom, folks. That's my first place is recommending. We'll talk about square footage here and filtration in a minute. Okay, so now I was a fan because like I said, a lot of the clients and people that are very sick, they do react to the chemicals. HEPA doesn't get rid of the chemical component, but carbon filtration does. So the filters that we were carrying in the past had HEPA and carbon. How does this different from carbon filtration that does have a chemical component to it?
Yeah, the carbon is an absorptive material. It can be useful in a lot of different applications. I don't want to be overly negative on it, but right. It has drawbacks in that it's generally not a chemical mechanism that is occurring between the carbon absorbent and the chemistry that's involved there. And there's a lot of times desorption of whatever you caught can reappear basically in your environment. You could do a great job overnight of, while it's cooler, potentially removing a lot of different things from your environment. And then the next day, if it, gets into the upper 80s or something and your home is in the upper 70s or approaching 80, now you're all of a sudden possibly moving those things right back into your environment.
So to give people an analogy of that, and you can tell me if I'm correct on this analogy or not, carbon acts more like a sponge in that it absorbs, but unfortunately, if it gets warmer, that could squeeze the sponge and you could start releasing chemicals. And a sponge only has so much capacity before it's filled, and then it's not working and releasing chemicals. Is that a good analogy?
That's an analogy I use myself quite often. Is carbon is a sponge. Sponges can be wrung out, whereas our technology, we use the phrase not absorbent, AB. We use adsorbent, and we often talk about adsorptive, AD, adsorptive neutralization to work into it where our technology really is different, in that there are chemical mechanisms occurring when the two come into contact with each other. It's not just the sponge's pores being filled up with something. It's our adsorbents materials and the surface interaction to retain the material on our technology, so that it doesn't come off, or that it is more effective in that brief period of time that chemical contaminant is passing through the filter, that it is a more reactive, and I'm using the term reactive in a good way here, that it wants to, grab onto to that thing and retain it, so that it can,
Yeah, so it's more of a chemical reaction.
Yes.
that changes the chemical, if you will, as well as hold on to it in a different. So it doesn't, it doesn't overflow as quick, and it doesn't temperature changes, things like that don't squeeze the sponge, so to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, so therefore, number one, it's going to be able to hold on to far more chemicals for longer without, letting go of chemicals. And number two, you don't have to change the filters as often. I would take it,
We have a pretty good a lifespan on what we're deploying. A lot of times when people are comparing different devices, that they're not always comparing apples to apples. There's a lot of air purifiers out there that may have multiple pounds of another adsorbent in there, and they might claim pretty long lifetimes. It's because they've got this huge device with multiple pounds, where we're deploying our technology very simply in an easy to use air cartridge system that's easy to change. They're typically going to get several months, half a year or whatever out of use of this. Of course, this is all very dependent upon specific environmental conditions, as it would be with any type of adsorbent or adsorbent technology out there. But we feel that the way that we're doing it, we're using safe materials. We're using a technology that is going to be able to, effectively grab onto and retain and break down different chemistries and keep it on the surface, keep it in there in a simple, easy to use device that is easy to maintain, and you can turn it on and kind of forget about it for a long time, because you're not being prompted to have to change it, and you're not thinking about what's in your air, because it's removing everything for you. And it's just...
No, I love the simplicity of my unit, and I can tell you. Okay, so here's what I did, right? I mean, I wanted to test the technology for what I was using, and I got certain chemicals that I knew that, okay, if this is really working, then I'm not going to be able to smell this particular chemical, right? Certain chemicals have smells, certain ones don't. And I literally ran certain chemicals through it, and it worked, and I was very impressed. And my old technology, I could still smell a portion of the chemical. So number one, it worked better than my other unit, and at a fraction of the cost. I'm going to be honest with you. You can get one of these filters. Well, we can talk about the pricing, and I think Ashley, I think we have some type of affiliate deal, but I mean, these things are under $1,000, and I was spending $3,000-$4,000 for these filters units before, and this one works better. And I keep it running in my bedroom at a very, there's a whisper level and a low level, and I've never had to use it higher than that. Obviously, if I had, a bigger area, I could turn it up, but it works. I mean, it works really well, and it works for people that have mold exposures, because it does hit the biotoxin, not just the mold spore. So, and again, remediate your mold. I'm not saying that, but but my goodness, if you feel, you have to understand, Kyle, a lot of the people that watch this show or listen to this show, they're extremely sensitive, and even low levels of biotoxins from mold make them sick, and they have to filter it out. And this technology is the best I've seen for that. So I was very impressed, with the tests that I've done on it.
Well, you mentioned something that I think is important to also remind people of. We talk to a lot of folks, and they're asking about, where do I deploy my, Enviroklenz air system? And it's, well, where do you spend most of your time? And, people will think, well, I'm in my living room, I cook. It's where you sleep. You know, where I mean, you might sleep, who knows, 6 to 9 hours or whatever, but that's where most of your time is, and it's in generally a smaller room, so you probably have less air exchange. Um, that's just a really good spot to deploy that. And you mentioned the lower wisp air setting on the system, and that's great for most smaller rooms, is the lowest settings, because it kind of accomplishes a couple of things. One, it's a nice, quiet, white noise type of device. But when you're actually running it on low in again, a smaller type of room, since the speed is actually slower, you can actually improve each pass's efficiency against the chemicals, odors, and vapors, because you're not blasting air through there really fast. Obviously, as you move it into bigger rooms, you might need more air turbulence to actually effectively move air in the environment. But I often just recommend people, if you're in a room that's less than 20 by 20, just run that thing on the low. It's going to do a wonderful job for you. It's going to remove all those different things, the particulates, the chemicals, the odors, vapors, everything that isn't cut by size. Now we can have this system deployed in order to attack those things.
So what is the square footage? My bedroom is, I don't know, maybe the average size room, maybe it's 400, 500 square feet. I don't know, but it works.
Well, that's well within the capability of these.
What is the capability?
Well, it technically, and this is where the analytical person in me versus a marketer person, it truly depends upon the volume, not necessarily the square footage of space, but the volume that you are needing to treat in that area. And a lot of times, average home, it can treat areas up to 1,000 square feet, which is really nice. I do, though, want to let people know, of course, that, if you have a whole bunch of room, 1,000 square feet divided over a whole bunch of rooms, you don't get the air movement between the rooms that you necessarily would. And, deploying the system in maybe a general living area in that type of setting would be a good idea, or in the bedroom. But it can treat, those types of areas. It can move that much air to do that. But, again, every every home is different. The concentrations are different. The flow of the home. A lot of people have now the more open floor plans, and you can treat obviously much bigger square footage areas than if you have an old home with a bunch of.
And what the basic cost of that unit is? What is the basic cost?
The standard unit, and I have to apologize, I don't have the exact quotes, but they run in the $700, $800, $900 on different packages and programs that are available. And you mentioned the one that's available through that Ashley has that information for.
Yeah, we'll put a link up. Ashley,
exactly.
And we would have a discount code on there with the link, but.
Yeah, and those are really great, because what you often get is obviously the system, the HEPA filters, some cartridges, and we even have packages that include air meters, so people can actually see their impact that these systems can have over time. Making improvements to your air quality include a lot of different things, of course.
Right.
About fresh air purifiers, removing sources, treating sources. In the environment. But if you start doing all of these different things over time, you can really start to see the change to the profile of your environment. And
I've had people like just their sleep changes. I mean, just, within days of using the unit. Now, the other thing I love is you all have, and I think everyone should get this, for the average HVAC system, that's your heating and cooling system in your home. Everybody has the little filters that you go to Home Depot or somewhere and buy. Those are typically just filters that filter out particles, which, that's important. But you can replace that filter with one of your filters that have this new technology medium in it, as well as the regular filtration. I've done that, and I recommend everybody does that. How much, you probably don't know the price, you're the scientist here, but it's put it this way, it's more expensive than what you buy at Home Depot, but worth every stinking penny. That means every bit of your air is being filtered through that.
That is correct, and that's actually what I have deployed in my home as well. That's my every 3 months, we're changing it. That's just what we have. A lot of particulates. So, it's removing the particulates still very efficiently with that. But now what you're doing is, as you mentioned, the ones that you would buy at a big box store or hardware store, they're removing particulates.
Right.
Now we've just included the ability to remove, again, the chemicals, odors, gases, different things that are often considered the environmental pollutants. So that's what we're doing with that technology. And it's a great way, because while your system is running, you're both exchanging air often with the outside, but you're turning over all that air in your home very efficiently.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to treat a lot of different things, from day-to-day odors, from cooking and just kids' household.
For us, it's about health on this show. So that's what I have. I have that in my unit. And maybe Ashley can look at what that actual price is for that. It's very inexpensive. And then Ashley just told me, okay, so here's the link. It's Get Clean Air For You, the number 4you.com. And it starts at $6.99. That's almost 30% off. So we appreciate that, by the way, Kyle. So, giving our viewers a discount. But anyways, we'll also, when we have the information, we'll find out how the AC units are, but it's way less than that. I can tell you that.
Yeah. They're typically like $99 or something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I remember it being about $100 for that. And again, you pay. I upgrade it when I buy the other ones. I probably pay about $30. So come on, this is far better because it actually gets rid of the chemicals that I believe are really dragging us down every day.
Yeah, it's a added capability to what you're already removing particulates, maybe not depending upon if you buy the $4 one or the $30 one.
I upgrade it.
Yeah, those more expensive ones do a good job at smaller and smaller particles, which is a nice thing.
But they don't do the chemicals or the biotoxins from potential mold in your HVAC, and that's what I want. So
yeah, exactly.
Yep. Well, listen, I so appreciate you coming on, giving us the new science, the new technology. If it protects our soldiers from chemical warfare, we need this technology to protect us. So we appreciate your research through the years to bring us this technology, Kyle. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm pleased that I actually over the years have worked with a lot of people that are smarter than me that originated this technology, and I'm happy to be along for the ride and also to help further it as we continue into the future, bringing it into new applications such as the air purifier.
But listen, they may have been smarter, but you brought it to the average man in the big need. So that we appreciate. And so I think you're being humble as well. So thank you, Kyle. I so do appreciate you bringing the science and the technology. You definitely made my life better, and you're going to make thousands of others better. So appreciate it.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. This episode was brought to you by CytoDetox. Please check it out at buycytonow.com. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We truly appreciate your support. You can always find us at cellularhealing.tv, and please remember to spread the love by liking, subscribing, giving an iTunes review, and sharing the show with anyone you think may benefit from the information heard here. And as always, thanks for listening.